So, hello everyone out there in YouTube, Facebook, whatever land. I am so happy to be here with you today. My name is sevillailove, and I am a transformational life coach. I am a clinical therapist with over 20 years of experience. I am a grief and loss expert, and there's a good reason for that. I'm going to tell you why. Now, in my 20 years of experience in working with women and men that have been striving to overcome the loss and the grief in their life, whether it be from being widowed, whether it be from being divorced or some major life transition. It's always a very huge, hairy deal because we have to then remake ourselves from what we thought we once were. And so today we're talking about good grief and what that really means. And so I have some things that might surprise you about that. Now, if you're new to my work, you may not know that I am a woman that has been divorced. I have been widowed. And by the age of 42, I had lost both my parents, all grandparents, two brothers, multiple friends, extended family, clients, definitely all grandparents. And finally, I lost my husband. There was no loss like that. The only thing I haven't lost in my life, God forbid, is my only child. And after my husband died, I went on to have multiple other losses. And even now as we speak, I'm sitting here in a room holding the ashes of one of my dearest and most beloved lifelong friends. I understand grief. I understand loss, and I help people to be able to recover and live a life again after their world has been stripped from them, whether it was from something that they chose or whether something they didn't choose or something that happened to them. Anytime you go through a major life transition, you're going to have to either be sitting in a place where you're continually trying to remake the past, which will cause nothing but misery for you. Because when we're sitting in a place where we are resisting what is, then we create suffering for ourselves. Suffering over the suffering. I help people to get out of that. I've been doing it for over 20 years. And as a matter of fact, I'm a spiritual intuitive, and I've been doing that all my life. I use those talents, skills, and abilities to really help guide my clients out of the sticky mud of the grief and the loss and the past, and help them to be able to create an open doorway into their own future, to be able to uncover the power that they have within them, their abilities, their strengths, a new way of being and seeing and doing in this life that they may not have been able to imagine before. Now, some people are many years out from their loss and they're still in this process. They're still struggling with all of the aftermath of whatever loss that occurred in their lives. I help with that. Now, if your loss has been created and you may be, like, for example, alone for the first time. So what I want to challenge you with today is, what is different about your life now that you never expected, wanted, asked for, planned for? What's different? And how could you take that differentness and mold it into something that can then be useful for you? Don't get me into the old tired adage of making lemonade out of lemons, because I'm not going to go there. Did I just say that? But I do want you to see some flowers growing out of the shit of your past. That I want to see happen for you. Because grief can come up and revisit and revisit and revisit throughout a lifetime. Personally, I'm coming up on another anniversary. And my life has moved forward. And I have all kinds of new, lovely things in my life, and the grief still carries with me. So how do you have good grief when it's still with you years later? when you're still maybe just recently in it. And it's powerful and it overwhelms everything in your life. What makes you feel like you can ever get there when you're here in this dark, dank place of pain? There is a way out. When they say time heals all wounds, it's not time so much that heals the wounds, although that does help. It is the process that you allow yourself to go through, that you allow your soul then to speak through you, your higher soul, your higher self to speak to you now, to this ego self, this life that you're living, this story that you tell yourself about yourself. You allow your soul to speak to you so you can start to create a new narrative about your life now, where you're at. Here in this moment, not in the moments past, not that you should negate it, forget it, or dishonor it in any way, because it's what brought you here, isn't it? And even if this place is painful, or even if this place might even be hopeful, maybe you're not in a dark place, but you're still confused. You're still not sure where you're going to go next. Well, that's okay, because sometimes we have to be able to sit in a place of not knowing. As I love Eckhart Tolle, he says, sitting in a place of not knowing creates space for knowing to come to us. That's not an exact quote, but this is true. And so if you can allow yourself in your grief to sit in a place of being okay with not knowing. I know so many people that have recently lost someone and they feel like I should be doing something. I should be able to, get out of bed on the weekends. I should be able to go socialize. I should be able to pay my bills on time. What? You should be able to allow yourself to be compassionate with yourself and your loss. And if you're years out from whatever change happened in the past, and that you're still managing that adjustment, compassion matters just as much now, years out, as it did then. Because you're still you. You're still the person with the story and the experience and the continuing process that happens up here, and in your spiritual self. Okay? Because all of the learning that we do in this lifetime helps to evolve our souls. And so being able to understand and grasp from the past the wisdom and the experience that we need to recreate ourselves now, that is what we need. That is our purpose in our pain. That, my friends, is the good grief. When you can allow yourself to feel the pain, experience the suffering, and then be able to be a conduit to allow it to pass through you in those moments so it doesn't sit in you for too long. When I was a waitress in college, which was a lot of fun, they would have somebody come into the restaurant on a busy night and they'd take up a table and they'd sit there and drink coffee all night. Well, as a waitress, I was trying to make money because I had bills to pay. I had school tuition to pay. And I needed to make money, and I had somebody sitting there drinking coffee all night. At the end of the night, they'd leave me $2. That table, I could have turned over 4 or 5 times and made $100. So we called those people sitters. They were sitters, and they did not create any revenue for the restaurant or for the server. But we couldn't do anything with them because we were there to host them. It was a restaurant. We were there to be polite, and we wanted them to, eventually come back again, of course. So we had to be nice about it and allow them to sit there. Guess what? You don't have to put up with sitters in your life, in your heart. You don't have to put up with sitters because, you know what? You're not a restaurant. And if you'll just allow me to make this crazy analogy, it's not necessary to allow the pain and the suffering to sit for longer than necessary, because guess what? This is your life. And while the pain has its purpose, okay, we can allow it to sit there for a while, for an hour or so, a day or so, a year or so, whatever your circumstance is. But eventually there comes a time where that sitter has to move on. And if the sitter is your pain that debilitates you from moving forward, from taking action, from being able to do anything that improves your life, then that sitter has to go. And I help teach people how to do that. I help teach them how to move that sitter along, to get them out of the restaurant so you can start creating more joy, more happiness, more inspiration, more purpose. That's your revenue in this new life that's yours now, even if you didn't ask for it. There is purpose in your pain, and there's purpose in the story that you have lived. And there's purpose in creating a new story, in these new steps that are ahead of you, even if you don't know where they're taking you yet. It's all right. It may not feel all right, and you may say, well, it's easy to say on the other end of the camera, but remember, folks, I've lived it over and over and over again. You're not alone. You're never alone. Our loved ones on the other side, they stay with us. They continue to love us, inspire us, guide us, help us along. We have to be open to hear that. Sometimes we're not, but they're always there. In my lifetime of spiritual studies, which are long and intense and deep, that's one thing I know for sure, that we're never alone. Thank you for tuning in today. If you like this video, please show it, like it, subscribe to my channel. There'll be more coming in the days and weeks and months to come. I'm a grief and loss expert. I'm a spiritual intuitive, and I'm here to help you. Thanks for liking my channel, and thank you for subscribing.